Good morning. Nick from Euroclad in Booth Muirie. We're a manufacturer, a fabricator of ACP or aluminium composite material facades. We fabricate all manufacturers' materials, so typically there'll be Alucobond, Alpolic, Larson, and many others. Now, typically ACM is available in 3 grades in the UK, and all 3 grades are commonly supplied in the UK. One grade having the polyethylene core, which was used on the fire that we saw the video of. It burns very aggressively, the polyethylenes, as has been discussed. Interestingly, all 3 grades achieve a Class O in terms of surface spread of fire. Alucobond and Mitsubishi have 2 levels of then fire-rated materials, one achieving a B classification under the Euronorm test, and one achieving an A2 classification under the Euronorm test. I think there's a lot of ambiguity at the moment as to what is acceptable as being non-combustible, and does the B classification S1 DO sit within the required or the limits of what is considered of limited combustibility, or does it have to be A2? If it's of A2, then it's of a concern, because in the past 15 years we've only supplied 2 projects where the A2 grade material has been used. So we talk about substitution of materials. There's a real concern there that actually perhaps none of the materials supplied in the UK, with the exception of 2 projects to my knowledge, actually meet the requirements of the definition of limited combustibility.
So your question, right, the question is whether a Euro Class B is limited combustibility.
Yeah, BS1DO.
That is not limited combustibility.
In which case you only have 2 projects.
The other thing to remember is approved document B is not the regulation. Approved document B is guidance. And that there are other means to demonstrate compliance with the building regs other than approved document B. But what I would say is if you take approved document B as the absolute requirement, which I've caveated, then it's limited combustibility for buildings with a storey above 18 metres.
I mean, in view of what the gentleman was outlining there, does the panel feel that potentially we are sitting on a time bomb as well in terms of some of the materials that are installed, or do we have a level of confidence that the ones that have been installed in the past will perform in a fire? Anyone want to come back on that one?
We'll have to ask our builder customers. Taking that, the polyethylene type panel. Yes. Obviously, if the building doesn't have a habitable floor over 18 metres, there's no restriction on that.
I understand that, so but I could name
but over 18
tens
meters,
of projects.
I mean, there is an anomaly in the approved documents. If you follow the guidance within the approved documents, you are deemed to have met the performance criteria. Okay. So the approved documents, if you follow the elemental method, if you use a non-combustible insulation material and your external cladding meets diagram 40, which is a Class O surface spread of flame, you're deemed to have complied. So there could be instances, where we have this polyethylene filled panel on buildings over 18 metres. But when we talk to DC, we have highlighted this with DCLG, and they are looking at Part B at the moment in terms of looking at other areas of the regulations they need to examine, and Part B is one of those. We've submitted evidence to say, well, actually, this is something we've found as building control industry. When you talk to them, is yes, you've got what could be a combustible cladding, external cladding, but if you then couple that with a combustible or an insulation material which is not material in the combustibility, actually you're increasing the risk as well. So that's when they developed these regulations after the 1999 fire, that was where that came from. But like all regulations, it's, you know, they continually evolve. When regulations change, we don't revisit older buildings, which perhaps if they were built now wouldn't comply. So we don't do that. So yeah, there are a number of areas of the building regulations where there could be buildings out there which wouldn't comply with modern day standards, but those risks are managed, aren't they?
So to be clear, if you have a non-combustible insulation, a mineral wool insulation of one brand or another,
Yeah.
in conjunction with a classification of external cladding that has a Class O surface spread of fire,
Yeah.
that is acceptable under the current regs.
It would meet the building regulations, but as your building control body, I would perhaps be talking to you in light of my knowledge, because my knowledge is not just about, it's minimum levels of compliance with building regulations, but we as an industry should be talking to our customers about that as well, and we should be talking to government about that.
Yeah, my personal view is that certainly should change, because you could have exactly, in that scenario, you could have an exact repeat of the Dubai fire in any number of buildings that we supply product to in London. And to boot, many of those will also have a foam-based thermal insulation.
Yeah. And again, the panels when they're manufactured, again, factory manufactured panels are probably safer than have a lesser degree of risk than the ones that are manufactured on site. But what you find is invariably with building tolerances, even with factory-made panels that come complete, fully sealed, the core is fully sealed and things like that. So you have some degree of time before that fire reaches that. They have to be cut to size and all sorts and altered on site anyway because of building tolerances and the way that happens. So that again increases the risk.
Yeah, and even a factory-made panel has exposed edges in aluminium composite material.
It is something we've raised as the Building Control Alliance. We have raised with DCLG as an area we think should be looked at as part of their review of Part B.